You are watching PR English Shorthand Dictations YouTube channel.
This is English Shorthand dictation number 392 and the dictation speed is 100 words per minute. Ready? Start. Madam Speaker, the movement of the exchange rate of the Indian rupee recently has been a matter of concern. The rupee has fallen sharply against the dollar since the last week of May. There are concerns of the impact this would have on our economy. Madam, what triggered the sudden depreciation was the market's reaction to certain external developments. On 22nd May 2013, the United States Federal Reserve indicated that it would soon taper its quantitative easing as the US economy was recovering. This led to a reversal of capital flows to emerging economies, which are now pulling down not just the rupee but also many other currencies. While global factors such as tensions over Syria and the prospect of the US Federal Reserve tapering its policy of quantitative easing have caused general weaknesses in the emerging market currencies, the rupee has been especially hit because of our large current account deficit and some other domestic factors. We intend to act to reduce the current account deficit and bring about an improvement in the functioning of our economy. In 2010-11 and the years prior to it, our current account deficit was more modest and financing it was not difficult even in the crisis year of 2008-9. Since then, there has been a deterioration mainly on account of huge imports of gold, higher costs of crude oil imports, and coal. On the export side, weak demand in major markets has kept our exports from growing. These factors have increased our current account deficit. Clearly, madam, we need to reduce our appetite for gold, economize in the use of petroleum products, and take steps to increase our exports. We have taken measures to reduce the current account deficit. The finance minister has indicated that it will be below $70 billion this year, and we will take all possible steps to ensure that outcome. These are already showing results with a declining trade deficit in both June and July. The government is confident that we will be able to lower our current account deficit to $70 billion. Our medium term objective is to reduce the current account deficit to 2.5% of our GDP. Our short term objective is to finance the current account deficit in an orderly fashion. We will make every effort to maintain a macroeconomic framework to enable orderly financing of the current account deficit. Madam Speaker, coming back to the effects of the rupee depreciation, we must realize that part of this depreciation was merely a needed adjustment. Inflation in India has been much higher than in the advanced countries. Therefore, it is natural that there has to be a correction in the exchange rate to account for this difference. To some extent, depreciation can be good for the economy as this will help to increase our exports and discourage imports. There are many sectors which are regaining competitiveness in export markets as a result of the fall in the exchange rate. Over the next few months, I expect the effects of this to be felt more strongly both in exports and in the financial position of exporting sectors. This in itself would correct the current account deficit to some extent. However, foreign exchange markets have a notorious history of overshooting. Unfortunately, this is what is happening not only in relation to the rupee but also other currencies. The Reserve Bank and the government have taken a number of steps to stabilize the rupee. Some measures have given rise to doubts in some quarters that capital controls are on the horizon. I would like to assure the House and the world at large that the government is not contemplating any such measures. The last 2 decades have seen India grow as an open economy and we have benefited from it. There is no question of reversing these policies just because there is some turbulence in capital and currency markets. The sudden decline in the exchange rate is certainly a shock, but we will address this through other measures, not through capital controls or by reversing the process of reforms. The finance minister has clarified this matter at length, and I take this opportunity to reaffirm our position. Madam Speaker, ultimately, the value of the rupee is determined by the fundamentals of our economy. While we have taken a number of actions to strengthen those fundamentals, we need to do more. Growth has slowed in recent months. I expect growth in the first quarter of 2013-14 to be relatively flat, but as the effects of the good monsoon kick in, I expect it to pick up. There are many reasons for this optimism. The decisions of the Cabinet Committee on Investment in restarting stalled projects will start bearing fruit in the second half of the year. The full effects of the growth friendly measures that have been taken over the last 6 months, such as liberalizing norms for foreign direct investment, resolution of some tax issues of concern to industry, and fuel subsidy reform will come into play over the year, resulting in higher growth, particularly in manufacturing. Exports are also starting to look up as the growth performance of the rest of the world is showing signs of improving. So, I believe growth will pick up in the second half of the fiscal year, barring extreme unforeseen eventualities. Madam, there are questions about the size of the fiscal deficit. The government will do whatever is necessary to contain the fiscal deficit to 4.8% of GDP this year. The most growth friendly way to contain the deficit is to spend carefully, especially on subsidies that do not reach the poor, and we will take effective steps to that end. Madam, inflation measured by the wholesale price index has been coming down, even though inflation measured by the consumer price index is still too high. Depreciation of the rupee and rise in dollar prices of petroleum products will no doubt lead to some further upward pressure on prices.